Hi, welcome to the Addiction Recovery Place podcast, the podcast champion addiction treatment professionals around the world. I'm your host, Chris Langley, and I'm very pleased to introduce today's guest, Ryan Foltz. Ryan is the peer recovery support worker for Pathfinder Recovery. Welcome to the Addiction Recovery Place podcast, Ryan. It's so good to have you with us today.
Great to be here. Glad to finally sit down.
Yeah, definitely. We first met quite a while ago, so it's really great that we've had the opportunity to do this today. And obviously, you've been doing quite a lot of exciting work since we last spoke as well. But first of all, Ryan, could you tell us about yourself and your journey to becoming the recovery worker at Pathfinder Recovery?
Absolutely. My name is Ryan Foltz. I currently live in the Boston, Massachusetts area with my wife and our two children. I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and had a pretty normal childhood. Started experimenting with substances probably high school, because I was in bands, I was in the music kind of scene, and struggled pretty heavily with substances until I first sought treatment in my late 20s. And that was I was in and out for about 2.5, 3 years, until I met my wife, um, actually in Nashville, Tennessee, and moved to Boston. Was still struggling, and we found out that my wife was pregnant with our daughter, and was that's what it took for me. I got into recovery on an outpatient basis and never looked back. And that was in 2019. Um, and yeah, um, and then from there, I actually was kind of a stay-at-home dad for a while and was kind of struggling with my purpose and what I wanted to do, after working in music for so long. I didn't know if I was going to be able to go back to that, if I burned all the bridges. Um, and I had friends always tell me, "Hey, I think you'd be great at working with people in the addiction recovery space." I was like, "I don't know." But then I went and I took a CCAR class, and absolutely fell in love with it. Um, and here we are.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for sharing that, Ryan. I mean, what do you enjoy most about your role? Because this is quite, I wouldn't say it's new for you, but this is one of your first roles in, helping people within recovery. What is it you most enjoy about your role so far?
It's meeting all the different types of people, especially because we're a virtual program. I'm seeing people from, you know, all sorts of different places. And it's really great to kind of watch their journey, from the beginning, whether they've done our in home withdrawal management program, or if they've come from another facility. I'm able to see like them set these goals early on and then watch them achieve them. And it's really fun to be a part.
Yeah, yeah. So when did you start working with Pathfinder?
Pathfinder, I started, I believe it was June of this year. Uh, was really when we started getting going.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. We've had both your bosses on the podcast last month, and it was amazing to hear the great work that you're
Yes.
doing and what you're creating as well as a service is very unique. I've done 66 of these podcasts before, and I've never come across a service that has such huge scope and potential as well for your reach. It's quite something what you're building for sure. It really is. I'd suggest anyone listening to this podcast to go and check out the podcast we did before with Ryan's managers. Absolutely. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of things you enjoy about your role, Ryan. But so what are some of the challenges that you've faced since you've started your role? What are the things that you find most difficult?
A big challenge, I think, at least in the industry as a whole, is recovery coaching and peer support. Peer support, not as much, but recovery coaching specifically is a pretty new thing. to healthcare. So it's one of the newer roles, and it's kind of understanding like what we do, because we're not a therapist, we're not a sponsor. So I think really being able to stay in our lanes, that's a big thing that we learn. And, keeping it to what we're doing, setting goals, helping them with, you know, showing them that we've been there and using our lived experience to help them and guide them through their recovery.
Yeah. It must be a huge relief for someone that's starting to engage with a service such as yours to find someone with lived experience as well, and someone there to support them on their initial journey within recovery. It's an amazing thing to do, Ryan. It really, really is. I mean, obviously, lots of people in recovery, and might want to go into this as a career. So, what would you say to someone who is considering being a recovery worker or a recovery coach who is now in recovery? What would you say to them to do?
I would tell them, because this is true for at least I know our state and a couple others, to get your state certification. If I would go and take Recovery Coach Academy from CCAR, because that gives you just the basics and kind of what being a peer support recovery coach looks like, and you'll find out if it's something that you're gonna like. You get to meet other people that have either are already in the space and working in these roles, and also people just like you that are just trying to see if it's something they're interested in.
Yep, yep, definitely, most definitely. Um, when we first met, Ryan, you mentioned to me that alcohol use is sometimes forgotten as a problem because we've got other major issues around the world now, obviously with the fentanyl crisis and the opioid crisis going on. But can you tell me why you think that alcohol use has maybe been increasing, and what are your main concerns about how this is being treated?
So I think it's it depends on a lot of factors. Like for me, right? I can speak for myself. I grew up in the South where it was very much normal, almost expected that you drink. Like, I always tell this story to my clients because it sticks with me so much. That I remember seeing a T-shirt as a kid at the mall in Knoxville that said Knoxville, Tennessee, a drinking town with a football problem. And like that always stuck with me. So it was one of those things like, oh, when I'm an adult, like I'm supposed to drink. Like this is what I'm supposed to do. And because it is so socially accepted, I think that makes it very difficult. Because I know, especially for me personally, I saw so many people around me drinking the way that I was like, oh, I have a problem. But the difference was is I was not functional. And not functioning in a capacity to which I could live my life. And but I think in a good on a good note, I do think the younger generation is actually drinking less than previous generations, which I think is a positive trend.
Mm, yeah, I've read about that as well. I mean, obviously I'm British, and I keep quite a close eye on this, and they have been saying this generation is drinking less and using less drugs as well. So something's working, I guess. So, it's quite interesting how
Yeah.
generationally these things can shift. That's for sure. That is for sure. Um, One of the things I did want to touch on before when we had our pre-podcast call, Ryan, you mentioned that some of your concerns are with these new online influencers that seem to have just taken hold, and some of these influencers are claiming to be experts in addiction recovery. On this podcast, I've discussed this before with a lady who's in Las Vegas, because there's obviously a problem with clients attending therapy sessions and claiming they've been diagnosed with a certain condition. I mean, what would you say some of the big risks around having online influences is, and the potential damage they can do could be quite substantial? Would you say?
Yeah. So I think in today's age, just with the internet in general, um, the internet's a scary and dangerous place. Anybody can go on
Mm,
there and say what they want. Um, and and I've seen some. wild claims on the internet, but I've also seen creators create communities, whether they're, in the 12 step group base,
Mm.
or they're in the harm reduction space. They're creating these communities that are really great. Um, but there's a balance to it. But I think the main thing is just be careful what you're listening to on the internet, and make sure to speak to your medical provider.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's for sure. Because it does seem to be a certain issue that's on the rise, and I completely agree with you about creating communities around to help people within recovery. I just think that sometimes with these influence, they have an influence. That's the name of the game, I suppose. But it's just amazing to see kind
Yeah.
of the effects it can have, and the potential damage, but also the good it can do as well. So I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not trying to, criticize this too much, but it does concern me as well. Obviously, with the rise of what's going on, but yeah, definitely. Thank you for that, Ryan. One of the other drugs that you mentioned when we first met was Kratom, and this is something I've kind of not come across too much before. And what would you say are the biggest risks of Kratom, and how does it affect someone who's using it on a potentially regular basis?
So I think what's really scary about Kratom is just that it is available just at the store. And going a little bit back into what we were talking about with the influencers, there's a lot of people online that are pushing it as like a harm reduction method, which I'm all for harm reduction, but it can be dangerous because it seems like it's just this something you can buy over the counter, so it couldn't be that bad. But I think what we're seeing a lot of now, they've moved kratom, and they've made these synthetic pills out of the active ingredient in kratom, like I think called 7OH or 70. And I've seen a lot of stuff online about people having pretty terrible withdrawals from the stuff and getting pretty physically dependent. Again, I'm not sure on the science behind it, but I do know that I've seen an increasing amount of struggles with those substances. So it's a dangerous line.
Mm-hmm. So has this kind of been something kind of newly developed? Is this something that's kind of beginning to grow in popularity, would you say? I mean, you said it's accessed openly over the counter as well, so it's
Yes,
going to cause
it
more problems.
they've I basically put it into tablets now
Mm.
that you can buy at like smoke shops and stuff.
Okay.
Um, and I guess they're synthesizing it. Again, I'm not sure on the science of
Mm-hmm.
it, but it seems to be a pretty dangerous substance. I know there's whole organizations out there that are actually that I believe actually Eliza met with some last week, that's for this 7.0 synthetic kratom type thing.
Mm-hmm. Right, I get it. I understand. Because in the UK, we had a very similar problem back in, I don't know, 2005, where we had legal highs where all these synthetic drugs were suddenly on the market openly, and it just caused huge problems. I think I think the synthetic cannabis was the biggest problem we have, and it's still a problem in prisons today. It's really frightening stuff. Some of this stuff with the chemicals that it's just added to plants, and it's just called a synthetic drug. It's absurd.
It's not new because it was around when I was younger as well. Like, I mean, they've been there. Um, and it's scary stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, absolutely. Um, with the opioid crisis growing at an alarming rate, can you tell us what's happening in your state, and what is your state doing to reduce the crisis? Would you say are they doing some good work to kind of alleviate what's going
So I think there are a lot of resources. Like I said, I am in the Boston area.
on?
Um, but there is such a huge need here. I don't know if you've heard of it, but we have a section of downtown Boston, that has been dubbed Methadone Mine, and it is basically, I don't know if you know, if you're familiar with like Kensington in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
but it's very similar to that. Um, not quite as bad, because they've done some tent removals and stuff like that. But it's just such a problem because where are we putting these people? How are we helping them? Especially when all of those services are centralized in that area. That's if you don't have transportation and you're unhoused, like you have to go down there to get your methadone if you're on an MAT.
Yeah.
And it's a bigger problem of what can we really do to help, and where do we put some of these people?
Hmm. So there's been an ongoing problem within Boston, within this certain area, like you said, similar to Kensington in Philadelphia. That's kind of the kind of not epicenter, but the central location of problematic drug use.
Yes. So, and it's everywhere. It's now it
Mm.
is it's kind of spread out, because they've removed tents and stuff from that area. But I'm not originally from here, but from my understanding, there was a closing of a bridge that went out to a small island, close to Boston, that had all of these services. And so people were going there to get these services, and it wasn't causing as many issues. But the minute that bridge shut down, all of those services had to be put somewhere else, and they put them smack dab in the middle of downtown Boston.
Yeah. So it just centralized everything. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That makes complete sense. A couple more questions, Ryan. With the unfortunate and ongoing problem with public stigma of addiction, which is something I always touch on in these podcasts, what is it that makes accessing service such as Pathfinder Recovery so difficult for some people because of the stigma attached with addiction or mental health trauma?
So, for me, at least in my opinion, I think that us in Pathfinder, I feel like there's a little bit less of the stigma because you're not having to go anywhere. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are worried, like, oh, if I go to an AA meeting, if I go to an outpatient IOP, and I'm seen walking into this place, like, what are people going to think? But luckily, that's one of the main reasons that they created Pathfinder
Mm-hmm.
Recovery, so you could get this treatment from at home. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the biggest feedbacks I get from the clients is I'll say, so, what makes you feel, is there anything that you need for me to feel comfortable? And they're like, no, I'm at home. This is fantastic. Like, I feel so much more comfortable here than having to leave my home.
Yeah. It's such a unique service that you're developing. It's really is something else. I mean, could you just tell our listeners a little bit about Pathfinder Recovery and how it works and how it, in case someone hasn't heard the podcast that we did before?
Yeah. So we are a completely virtual program. We offer withdrawal management from your home. Um, and we also do our detox or withdrawal management program is actually 28 days. Um, so during that time, you will have medical check-ins for the first week, um, peer coaching for the first week, therapy for the first week, and like almost every day you'll have touches with somebody, and especially medical during the withdrawal management period. And then after that, we're not just going to be like, okay, you're medically detoxed, you're on your own. We want to give people the support for that month, and at least be able to speak with a clinician or recovery coaches, and also the doctor to make sure there's not any issues ongoing from after the detox. And what we found is most people want to continue after that and keep seeing our therapists and our recovery coaches, and kind of having that long-term support at home that can be a lot easier for people. A lot of people who have very busy work schedules or have kids at home, and they can't go to an IOP 5 nights a week, or they can't go into therapy, because of the availability. Um, so, and we also offer, some outpatient. We can do a lot of things a la carte as well, which is great because we want to customize your program the best for you because nobody's recovery is the same. I think that's a big problem, um, that we kind of treat everything as, one way, but everybody's different and people need different supports. We've had people that started with peer support and then they kind of needed more like breath work, yoga, and holistic stuff. So they moved over to one of our amazing practitioners, Meg, who's who it's changed everything. So it's um it's really great to be a part of a program that truly tries to make everybody's program fit their life and what makes sense for them.
Yeah. It's a very unique program. It really, really is. I would suggest to anyone to go to their website to check it out for sure. I just asked about stigma, and you're reducing stigma by how your program is offered as well. I mean, that's huge. It really is, and congratulations to you and the team. It's wonderful to hear the great work that you're all doing. It really is.
Thank you.
It really is. It's amazing. I love it. Last couple of questions, Ryan, because I ask all my guests this, and because I get some really interesting and varied answers. But can you tell me what your opinion of harm reduction is and how it can play such a role within recovery?
Well, I am a huge harm reduction advocate. I'm a firm believer of, well, it's a fact. Like you can't find recovery if you're not with us anymore. And for me, it took a while, and I did get sober on MAT, and successfully transitioned off. But so it's a big part of my story, and I think it's important for us to meet people where they are, to give them the time they need to find recovery. Because if I had just given up, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Thank you for that. Last question. Do you have a message for anyone who's listening to this podcast who's going through an addiction? What would you like to say to them?
Um, don't give up. I remember my last program that I was in, like a PHP. My therapist, I had just turned 30. I was feeling some type of way about it because I was 30 and I had nothing going on, all this. All my friends were getting married, and she was like, "In your wildest dreams, in 5 years, where would you be?" I said, "I'd be married with a family." And I never thought it would be possible. Sure enough, by my 35th birthday, I had a daughter and a wife, and I was in recovery. So the main thing I would say is just don't give up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Ryan, and sharing your story. This is going to be inspiring for anyone who is going through recovery themselves, who's listening to this podcast. It's always lovely for me to hear these stories of how people have just gone through it themselves and now are just doing some amazing work for their communities and potentially the whole country now with what's happening with Pathfinder Recovery. I mean, this whole program can just keep growing and growing and growing. It really is amazing, and it's been lovely talking to you today. Can you tell our listeners how to best to contact you and to find Pathfinder Recovery online?
Yeah, probably the best place to go would be our website, which is www.pathfinder-recovery.com. And there you can get in touch with admissions, and they can take it from there and can also find out more information about our program as well.
Yeah, I suggest anyone go and check it out, that's for sure. Ryan, thank you so much again for your time. I've kept you enough. You've got a lot of great work to be getting on with, but no, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.